All right, so we're here with Columbus's very own Jaden Da. Being that he was a first round draft pick and he might have a little insight into some of these players and teams, we brought him on to preview the D1 season. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. How are you? I'm happy to be back, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I see you killing it, bro. I'm really been really happy for you. Seeing you scoring some goals, man.
Yeah, no, it's been a good start to the season so far. Columbus, our team is climbing up the ranks in MLS Next Pro, so hopefully we can end off, on a strong note. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I've been watching, man. You've been scoring some goals, bro. So we're gonna start off with the top drawer soccer, top 25. First off, we're just gonna go through it. I'm gonna start with the top 10. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any surprises, or let me know if you're like, no, they don't belong there, man. You can say it, man. Go ahead. All right. So first, obviously, Clemson came in at number one. Number two, Notre Dame. So last year's championship game. Number three, West Virginia. Number four, Stanford. Five, Indiana. Six, Marshall. Seven, North Carolina. Eight, Virginia. Nine, Oregon State. 10, SMU.
hmm
What do you think, man?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, all those teams have a great history of being one of the best teams in the NCAA for sure. I'm not surprised to see Clemson at number one because even last year when they had a slow start to the beginning of the year, I think a lot of people counted them out, but they always find a way to put it all together in the end. And I think Indiana will have a great year this year. They're always kind of an underdog, but they always do so well in the
And
NCAA tournament for sure. And SMU, we have a goalie on my team who was talking to me about their team actually a few days ago, considering they
really,
lost a lot of their players last year, saying they think it's going to be a iffy year, but not too sure on that. So, but other
I'm
than that,
happy you
the
brought
rest.
that up, bro. Because when I seen them, I was like, SMU, and that's a good point. They lost a lot of players, so I mean,
hmm
to me, it's kind of crazy to have them that high. They
hmm
played yesterday, and I think that, so I mean, maybe we'll see. But Indiana, I also really like, and I think Sam
hmm
Sarver, like he was ranked outside the top 10 players in the country. I really like that kid.
Yeah, no, that's one of my actually good friends. I got to train with him over the summer this year. So he is a really good striker, and he's for years now probably been one of the names of NCAA soccer. So I hope all the best for him this season. And I think he'll for sure end up in the draft for sure, getting drafted at least at the end of this year because I think this is his last year in college. So I
Yeah, I
think
think it's
he's
nice.
going to end off his last year with a bang. So yeah, he is a really good class player. And then also this other guy named Quinn Elliott on the same team, an outside back. He's also a really good player. So I think Indiana has a really good chance this upcoming
Yeah, I
season.
think they had three or four players in the top 25, but honestly, I know it's like nitpicky, but I'm like, yo, Sam Sarver's definitely a top 10 player in
hmm
D1 soccer, bro. I couldn't
Yeah,
believe,
no,
couldn't believe
yeah,
that.
for sure, for sure.
Man, I'm happy you said that, man, because Indiana was the one that stood out for me too. I'm like, no, in number five, I'm like, okay, yeah, I think they can make a run for sure.
hmm
Stanford, I'm not so sure about, honestly. Like, they have a good team, but that was actually the game I watched yesterday,
Yeah,
for the opening game, and they won, but it was like it's kind of weird for me. Like I think it's kind of weird in like D1 soccer right now. Some of those bigger teams that we're used to are
hmm
kind of like they looked a little sloppy. Like Stanford looked sloppy.
yeah.
Clemson looked good, but Maryland looked really sloppy. Syracuse was like I expected Syracuse to have a lot of fire. They brought in Bawa, and
hmm
I didn't see that type of firepower yesterday, at least for the opening game.
Yeah, no, for sure. But obviously, like first game of the season, can't really like jump to too many things yet. Because even us, like last year, not saying Duquesne's a powerhouse team at all, but I would for sure say we hit our stride. Towards the end of the year, kind of mid season after the first 2-3 games. So obviously, there's some like leniency there. So yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean everybody counted out Clemson last year, and then they won.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I was actually talking about this the other day, like Syracuse, Clemson. There's just some of these schools that just seem to like know how to win. Like it might
Exactly.
not look like they have the best roster sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, they always look like they're a good roster, but
hmm
like they always just figure it out somehow.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
So keep going. We got Georgetown at number 11, James Madison 12. Loyola 13, Vermont 14, Denver 15, 16 Hofstra, 17 New Hampshire, which I love,
Hmm.
uh, 18 UCF, 19 Wake Forest, and 20 Duke.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. But I thought Denver would be ranked, much higher. They also looked really good. I watched their game yesterday, so they look like a really strong team going into the season as well.
It's crazy, man. There's so many like teams that people might not be used to that are like going like this.
Yeah,
New Hampshire, Denver. I mean, well, people are used to Indiana for sure,
yeah,
but still, like being that high, like Indiana's really good. Um, Marshall, like those Vermont, like those
yeah.
schools have like this exploded.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I also think like a lot of these teams lost a lot of really like great impactful players. Obviously, Marshall center attacking mid got drafted last year, and he was like a huge contribution to their team. And Georgetown lost their striker, and a lot of these like top teams that now have to like adjust and have someone else come into that role. It'll be an adjustment for them, but a lot of these top teams are gonna have to find new ways, to find get results.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think there's like a bit of a changing of the guard? Like, do you think some of the more like whether it be coaching changes, it's there seems like there's a change in college soccer where there's teams that people are not used to hearing about that are becoming really good teams.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like even last year when I was playing at Duquesne University, like most people, if you ask about us, what is Duquesne, they don't even know how to pronounce the school name. But we found ourselves in the top 25 a few times,
Yep.
and yeah, no, like I think it's gotten to the point where any team can almost compete with any team on any given night. Obviously, there's a few exceptions to that. There's no it's really good teams in college, but the ball is round and anything can happen, especially in college soccer. So yeah, for sure that.
What do you think it is? Do you think it's like, some people like obviously there's some teams that go more international
Yeah,
players, and then there's some that, have a mixture, and then there's some that are heavy with US talent. Do you think it's like there's just way more talent coming out of the US and so these teams are just stronger?
yeah, no, for sure. But I also think it's obviously there's few players that stick out on certain teams, but I think it's more like team oriented. If you're able to get a team to just bust their balls for 90 minutes and just run because college is a very high demand, physical, very fast paced game. So like honestly, anything can happen if some teams come out underestimating a certain team because this is them, we're supposed to beat them, like stuff like that's happened. Like even at Duquesne last year, we went to Michigan, obviously a Big Ten team. Even though they didn't have the best season last year, they're just known for being a good program. But we beat them like opening night at their own place. So like yeah, these big schools can't really put these smaller like these A10 C all schools in like the CSUN region like they can't just put them aside. They still have to go out there and show them this is us.
Yeah, there's no more like walkover games in D1 soccer.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, for
So the last five is like shocking to me. Which hey, look, there's a lot of good teams.
sure.
So 21 UCLA, 22 Kentucky, 23 Portland, 24 Syracuse, and then 25 SIUE. Um, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean SIUE. I think they lost a lot of players because that last year team was I thought was a really good team, but obviously it's not a team that is normally when you think of top 25 originally. But they won their conference last year and had a really good season. So yeah, and I'm surprised I didn't see Pitt on the list either, even though they had a lackluster season, I guess last season. But they're always a very good team, and they also had a really strong performance last night against Georgetown in a 2-0 win. So that just
Yeah,
goes
man.
to show.
There's a lot of good teams that didn't make the list. But one thing I was thinking, man, like last year, um, there was so many good players on Notre Dame, and he was like not in a bad way at all, but he was like you had to cover somebody, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
he had a
Yeah,
lot of those chances. So it's gonna be interesting to see him be like that number one.
yeah, yeah. I think Notre Dame also has a really good 10. I forget his name on the top of my head, but I had a few training sessions with him.
What is
He's
his
their
name?
number 10 right now. He's from Ghana. I forget his name,
Yeah,
but he's class. That guy's class too.
he is. What's his name? It's
It's
like a very
Kelvin.
distinct.
His name's Kelvin. I forget his last name.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Okay, so maybe you're not going to talk about this. You got to go back home to the DMV. What's going on with
yeah,
Maryland, man? What? It's bad year last year. Didn't look good in the
yeah.
first game.
Honestly, I'm not too sure what's going on because they have good players. Because
I
they have good
know.
players. So I don't know what's going on there. Like losing to UMBC is very, uncalled for, crosstown, rival. But I'm not too sure what's going on there. Honestly, I don't have the answers for you. I guess the players gonna have to buy into their coach's system and find ways to grind it out. But still, yet again, first game. So
Yeah, no, for sure. But last year was
yeah,
a draw may as well be
yeah,
a loss. Last season was tough. I talk about Maryland a lot, bro. I love the
yeah,
atmosphere at Maryland.
yeah,
They're always usually exciting to watch. I
yeah,
mean, even last year they were exciting to watch, even with a losing
hmm
season. Like they were
yeah,
exciting to watch. When I went over the stats, I'm like SMU was had a challenging year defensively last year, 32nd in goal differential, and then they lost a lot of players. I don't know.
yeah.
We'll see there, but I don't know if we'll see, man. I'm not sure where that's coming from. One thing I wanted to ask you about because it seems like to me, do you think the Ivy League is making a comeback?
I'm not. I'm not too sure, honestly. I think Ivy League has two or three, maybe even four, like really good quality teams that can, compete with a lot of these big teams and the Big Ten and the ACC. But overall, like from a player perspective, when you think you're gonna play against an Ivy League team, often teams go in and underestimate the game. But they have a good like Yale has good players. TJ
Cornell,
Prestis, I
Penn,
think, is a good player as well. And
Princeton.
yeah, exactly. Princeton too. Even Cornell, like
Yeah,
really good team. So, yo,
great
honestly,
coaching. Well, Cornell has a great coaching staff.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting, man. I think, and some of the players from Ivy League have actually been doing pretty well. Like, finding the guy from Yale went to where did he go? He went to Belgium. What team?
hmm
Went to Belgium. I think he went to Molenbeek, maybe. But yeah, man, I was really impressed with the Ivy League last year, and it just stood out to me. Keeping going, continuing with conferences. Obviously, the ACC remains kind of king,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
there's some of these conferences are really deep. So I um I ranked the out of the top 50 teams, how many? Excuse me, out of the top 50 players, how many were from each conference? ACC had 9 teams in the top 50.
Yeah.
Sun Belt had 5 in the top 50 teams. Pac-12 had 5. Big Ten had 3. NBC had 3. Sun Belt had 5. CAA had 1. Big East had 3. AAC had 4. American East had 4. WCC had 3. Atlantic 10 had 4
hmm
and NBC had 3.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's kind of well balanced around the board.
It is right, like, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's like, it's it's crazy because if like you look at American football for college, which I don't know a lot about, so I won't like try to try to get into it. But it just seems like that the SEC conference is just so dominant, and
yeah.
then you know it's not as balanced, right? It seems
hmm
like college soccer is a super balanced league.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of these teams, end up slipping out on some really good emerging talent that I feel like some coaches don't, spot out. Like there's a lot of players like that. And, these teams in these other conferences aren't players, just because they play in a lesser conference and not the big name, big teams doesn't mean that they're not quality because there's a lot of quality players that we see like, all around the board in all of college soccer. So there's never been like one game where you go into and there's always that, one or two players that can really, like really affect the game.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. Any do you have any predictions for well, I guess let's say who's gonna make the tournament, and then like maybe you give a guess to who might be who might be up there for uh maybe like a final four.
Yeah. So for sure, I think I'm a big like Indiana guy. I think not really. Okay, I can't say I'm a big Indiana guy, but I think Indiana's gonna have a really strong year this year, and I think they probably have, in my opinion, one of the biggest chances of going all the way this year. I think as far as Final Four goes, I'm gonna say Clemson again, just because I think they always find a way, no matter what, to just grind out results. I would say Indiana for sure. I want to throw in Oregon State. I think they were really good last year, and I think
Really good.
this year they can come through and really like pr- prove themselves again, and actually maybe even compete for the ship. And last, it's a tough one. You know, I'm gonna go with Syracuse.
I like
I'm
it,
gonna
bro.
go with
I,
Syracuse.
I like it. I don't care. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing, man. I can't believe the ranks so low.
yeah,
Um, but I agree. Syracuse has so much firepower, and like
yeah.
that coaching staff might be the best, and that or Clemson might be the best in soccer, man.
Mhm.
But it's like I said, it's such a weird season where UConn, I just feel like is like not quite there. Maryland's not quite there. Georgetown
Yeah,
to me is not quite there. I do like Portland though. I
yeah.
really like
Portland.
Portland.
Yeah, they were really good last year as well too.
It's such a good atmosphere in there too. It's so hard to play there. Maryland,
Hmm.
Portland. It's like these places are really hard to play in. For me personally, I just gotta think that Clemson's gonna be back there. So I agree with that. Notre Dame, obviously, like you said, is a very balanced team. My surprise picks, I definitely think I gotta go with New Hampshire, Portland, and everybody's super high in West Virginia. So I'm gonna throw them in the mix. For any matchups you looking forward to see?
Oh, me personally, obviously came from Duquesne University. I hope they can have a really great year, obviously overall. But I'm really hoping I can see the West Virginia, Pitt matchup. I love those matchups. I don't know. I didn't check the schedule. Hopefully this year they have that on the schedule because that's a big, backyard, pretty
Yeah,
close to each other game. So and two really quality teams. So like I really want to see that game for sure.
yeah, man. Probably the biggest one of the one of the biggest things that I think has right along with this improvement or this balance to college soccer is how impressive the draft picks have been, especially this year. Spicer in Toronto, yourself at Columbus, Inter Miami starting two of their draft picks. There's just so many draft picks doing so well in the MLS. Do you think this is going to continue, or do you think it was just like a crazy off year?
No, I think for sure, like these next couple of years, I think we're going to see a lot of these guys coming in from college and having good success. Continuing that to the next level. Like these guys are coming in, everyone's hungry and they want to make a name for themselves. So no matter who you are or where you play, like everyone wants to prove themselves. So I think it's going to be a more continuous thing. Like talent keep on pushing through the system. Like a lot of these guys even came from these, MLS academies and going to college. Obviously who didn't get a chance at first to, prove themselves at the club. So I think it's also a good opportunity for these kids, these upcoming freshman commits who have coming from these, big MLS academies to, continue pushing their college career overall for sure. But I think there's a lot of talent in the college game, and I think it's just going to keep on, rising.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's interesting, right? Like there's so few there really is so few kids who make a homegrown contract
Yeah.
and like college is a great place for them to continue to not only develop but kind of cuz a lot of kids are like late developers,
Yeah.
and if you maxed out at a young age, eh, you're not gonna
Yeah.
be the top performer, So I
For
agree
sure.
with that for sure. Actually, Belmar, do you know Belmar Joseph from Villanova?
I don't. I don't.
Bro, good player. He was I think he started every game as a freshman.
Hmm.
He signed in Switzerland today.
Really?
So he left college to go to Switzerland. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see college players go to Europe all the time now. You're starting to see. Uh, I even heard agents say that they're negotiating with clubs using like the like your scholarship for like however many
Mhm.
years. Like that's how they're
Really?
negotiating. Yeah, when they're sending players like Europe and stuff. So it's like I think even Europe is starting to understand um how good our college soccer system is here in the
Mhm.
US.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it goes to show there's a reason why a lot of these European kids or foreign kids are coming to the U.S. also to play in college. Because now college soccer has not just became, everyone's just an American, growing up across the whole country and getting scouted by these American teams or American college teams. And now they're, even looking overseas. And we see that in teams like Marshall, even Duquesne. Our own school, they have like players from all over Norway, Australia. So I think the game is really evolving for sure.
Let me ask you this. We talked about the new rule. Um, so American goes to Europe or anybody, any country. There's always an international roster spot rule. Do you think that D1 soccer should implement some sort of like international roster spot rule?
I think for sure. I think it'll help, obviously, our players here in the U.S., get better and play against these guys who have different experiences than them. And it'll ultimately help out our game, honestly, and bolster it. So bring more attention to the U.S. A lot of people, when they first think about U.S. soccer, obviously, it's like, oh, the cliche, it's trash, MLS, this, that, blah, blah. But overall, I think the U.S. produces a lot of great soccer talent, and it's just going to keep on happening for years to come. I believe so.
Right, it'll get kind of balance it out, give the U.S. players more
Yeah,
opportunities
for sure.
while keeping a good amount of international players. But I think I agree. It like gives you more balance in order to keep because the truth is, man, like in the U.S., any other country they have second, third. I was watching that Wrexham show,
Yeah,
and I didn't realize like they said that the average salary in the fifth division was something like 50,000 pounds or something. I'm like, fifth division makes 50, that's a lot. The
yeah,
average salary,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
our second division barely makes that, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so it's like college soccer realistically is the best route for our players. So I think there has to
Mhm.
be something in place to protect them a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I agree for
Yeah,
sure.
man. So that's exciting, man. I really appreciate you getting on, man. I like the players that you named. I think they will have big seasons, and maybe we can check back in after the season to see how some of that predictions went.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. It was nice talking to you, for sure.
You too, bro.